Hello, welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, today we're going to continue on in Matthew chapter 16. We're going to look at verses 2 through 4 today. And just as a refresher from verse 1, the Pharisees and Sadducees had come up to Jesus and asked for a sign to prove that he was the Messiah. And this is after all he had done. He had fed the 5,000, he fed the 4,000, he's healed all these people, and here they are still wanting a sign. And so that leads us to today's verses. So again, Matthew chapter 16, verses 2 through 4 say, He answered them, When it is evening, you say, It will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be stormy today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign shall be given to it, except the sign of Jonah. So he left them and departed. Now, obviously in those days they didn't have meteorologists. They didn't have all this complex equipment to predict the weather. And so they looked at the sky. So that's what Jesus is referencing here. Now, more importantly is what he says in verse 4. An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign will be given it except the sign of Jonah. Now, you may recall in the Old Testament there was a prophet named Jonah. The Lord had told him to go to Nineveh, which was a Gentile nation, a Gentile city nation, to preach repentance and call them back to righteous living. And basically he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go my own way. He gets on a ship. A bad storm comes on the ship. And very quickly the captain of the ship, those who were working on the ship, see that the cause of the storm is Jonah. So they throw him overboard, and the storm stops. Well, in the meantime, Jonah gets swallowed up by a large fish, and he's there for 3 days. Now, sometimes we get this vision of Pinocchio, thinking that, he had a fire going inside this fish's belly, and he's living, etc. This is a euphemism, this is an illustration that the writer is using to show that Jonah died. He was dead for 3 days. He was dead for 3 days, and on the third day, God rose him up. In theology, it's a word that's known as typology. It's something prefigured in the Old Testament that has a New Testament fulfillment. And in this case, its New Testament fulfillment is the resurrection of Jesus Christ on the third day after he was crucified. Now, was Jonah really in a belly of a fish? This side of heaven we may never know. But enable for that comparison to be made with Jonah and Jesus, he had to be dead. Okay, so that's why I say Jonah was dead for 3 days. It's kind of the same way today too. People say, show me a sign that Jesus is who you say he is. And I mentioned yesterday that the easiest way to disprove Christianity is to show the bones of Jesus. You see, this is the sign that Jesus is talking about. No one has ever had the bones. There is an empty tomb. You can go visit it. You can go visit it in Israel. There is an empty tomb. It's the ultimate message of Jesus saying who he says he is. He died. It was verified. It was verifiable. If he wasn't dead, the Roman soldiers would have broken his legs to make sure that he was dead. He died on the cross. They took him down. They put him in the tomb. 3 days later, just like he says here, he rose from the dead. That's the ultimate sign that Jesus is talking about here. God bless you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Daily Bible Podcast. Join me tomorrow as we continue on in Matthew chapter 16. And thank you for joining me each and every day. God bless you.